Jai Swaminarayan. Let's read the 8th passage from the 2nd Gadhadā. This passage is titled Ekādashi, Jnān-yagna, and Antardrashti. Entirely Sanskrit. Let's break them open. Ekadashi, it means the 11th, which refers to the 11th day of the lunar calendar, which is especially auspicious. It's traditionally a day of fasting. Jnān is knowledge, or specifically knowing wisdom, especially pertaining to the nature of the self or the divine. Yajna is a sacrifice. So Jnān-yagna refers to some kind of sacrifice of knowledge, probably in endeavoring to study, in the same way that a student might sacrifice going out partying that night for increasing in their knowledge of their subject. Antardrashti, I think I will remember what this means in context as we read, but it refers to the inner seer, I believe. Something like that. The inner embodied one. In the early morning of Shravan Suddhi the 12th, Samvat 1878, or the 10th of August 1821, Swami Sri Sahajanandji Maharaj was sitting on a small silken embroidered cloth in front of the mandir of Shri Vasudev Narayan in Dada Khachar's Darbar in Gadhadā. He was dressed entirely in white clothes. At that time, some Paramhansas were singing devotional songs to the accompaniment of a tal and murdang, while other Paramhansas as well as devotees from various places had gathered before him in an assembly. Then, addressing the sadhus, the monks, Sriji Maharaj said, "One should observe the Ekadashi fast because of the following story. Once, God was sleeping with his 10 indriyas and mind, the 11th indriya." What are the indriyas? The 10 senses. 10 senses? I'm sure you've only heard of 5. Those 5 are considered the jnanendriyas, the senses of knowledge, of jnana. These are the senses of sight, of sound, of taste, of smell, and of touch. But there's a whole other 5 category of indriyas, which are not typically considered senses, but still included, especially in Indian philosophy. And those are the 5 karmendriyas, the senses or organs of locomotion. This includes our vocal cords, the ability to speak. This includes our digestive tract, its ability to digest. It includes the muscles that are capable of releasing the things back into this world, what we digest. It includes our arms and legs that take us places. These are the karmendriyas. These are what we used to bring us to places in the world. It's kind of the complement of the jnanendriyas, which we use to get things from this world. The karmendriyas are ways in which we can give back to the world by taking us to people that we wish to serve, by using our voice and communicating, etc. If that makes sense. So God was sleeping with his 10 indriyas and mind, the 11th indriya, considered another sense as well. Drawn inwards. All of these indriyas were drawn inwards as he was sleeping, which happens when we sleep too. At that time, Murdanav, the son of Nadijang, came to do battle with God. But then a young woman was created from the divine light of God's 11 indriyas. Seeing her, Murdanav proposed to her, "Please marry me." The young woman replied, "I have taken a vow that I will only marry the person who defeats me in a duel." Thus a duel between Murdanav and the young woman ensued, in which the young woman severed Murdanav's head with a sword. God was pleased with her and said, "Ask for a boon." a gift that I shall give to you." The young woman requested, "On my day of observance, no one should eat grains. Furthermore, since I was born from the divine light of your 11 Indriyas, my name is Ekadashi. Since I am an ascetic, on my day of observance, no one should indulge in any of the Vishayas, the objects of our senses related to the 11 Indriyas, which include the mind." Hearing Ekadashi's wish, God granted her that boon. This is the story as it is narrated in the Puranas. How lovely! I had never heard that story of Ekadashi. I was wondering about the significance of 11, the 11th sense being the mind. And in honor of that, we refrain from allowing the mind to indulge in any of the sense pleasures of the 10 Indriyas, which of course includes eating. The Dharma Shastras also state the Ekadashi fast should be observed. On that day, one should not allow impure thoughts of lust, anger, avarice, etc. to arise in the mind, nor should one physically engage in any immoral activities. This is what the scriptures prescribe. In accordance with those scriptures, I also say that on the day of Ekadashi, one should not merely fast, but one should also forsake the quote-unquote food of the 11 Indriyas. Only then can the Ekadashi observance be considered true. Without that, it should be known as mere fasting. Just as the prans, the energies of the body, have their diet in the form of food, similarly the ears have a diet of sounds, the eyes have a diet of sights, the tongue has a diet of tastes, the nose has a diet of smells, and the mind has a diet comprising of thoughts and desires. In this way, the 11 Indriyas have their respective diets. To forgo these is called observing the fast of Ekadashi. However, to allow the 11 Indriyas to roam freely along the path of immorality and indulge in their respective foods, quote-unquote, is not truly Ekadashi according to the scriptures. Therefore, when observing the fast of Ekadashi, the 11 Indriyas should not be allowed their respective diets. Since such an observance arrives once every 15 days, one should definitely make a point of observing it. In return, God will become pleased upon one. Without this, however, merely fasting does not please him. The residents of Shvetadvip, one of the abodes of the divine, who are called Nirvana Muktas, are continuously observing this fast, and never do they allow it to be broken. That is precisely why they are called Nirvana, which means foodless muktas, liberated beings. We too should have such aspirations as, I want to become like those Nirvana muktas in Shvetadvip. One should not lose heart in this respect. Only if one keeps courage and observes the fast of Ekadashi in the way I mentioned earlier. What happened? The video feed cut out and it zoomed out. That's alright. My apologies. Thank you for your patience. Only if one keeps courage and observes the fast of Ekadashi in the way I mentioned earlier, listens to and engages in the discourses of God and devotional songs, and also stays awake at night, is the fast considered to have been observed properly. This is the very definition of the Ekadashi observance as mentioned in the scriptures. Having said this, Shriji Maharaj became silent. The sadhus then began to sing devotional songs. Thereafter, Shriji Maharaj again said, "When Brahma, the creator, carried out the very first creation, he told all of the people, 'You should all perform yajñas, sacrifices. Through them you will attain all of the purusharths, and the process of creation will also flourish.'" I'm not aware of what the purusharths are, but clearly some attainment to be attained through sacrifice. Therefore, be sure to perform these yajñas. Brahma then demonstrated the many different types of yajñas along with their rituals as described in the Vedas. Those who had adopted the path of pravritti, Brahma demonstrated the rajasic and tamasic yajñas of the pravritti path. These are the sacrifices which are inherently full of passion and darkness, probably in reference to those that include some sort of taking of life which is unnecessary, especially in the modern age. You know, the kind of stereotypical sacrifices we might imagine. To those who adopted the path of Nivṛtti, those that go on the path beyond thoughts, pravritti means with thoughts, Nivṛtti means without thought. He demonstrated sattvic yajñas, pure sacrifices. These yajñas have also been described by Shri Krishna Bhagwan in the Bhagavad Gita. Since we have adopted the path of Nivṛtti, we should perform sattvic yajñas, not rajasic or tamasic yajñas, in which animals are slaughtered. One can perform a sattvic yajña by withdrawing the 10 indriyas and the mind, the 11th indriya, from whichever vishayas they have become attached to, and then offering them into the Brahma Agni, the fire of God. Such a yajña is called yoga yajña, the sacrifice of union, of yoga. By continuously making such offerings, Para-Brahman, the highest ultimate reality, Sri Purushottam manifests himself within the Brahma Swarup, within the being which is now of the form of the divine themselves. Who perform such a yoga yajña, just as God grants darshan, divine witnessing, to the performer of a traditional yajña. In fact, this is the fruit of the yoga yajña. Furthermore, when a devotee of God engages in antardrashti, that is that Sanskrit word we referred to earlier, it is called Jnān-yagna. Someone may ask, what is antardrashti? The answer is to direct one's vritti, thought force, towards either the internal or the external form of God. That itself is antardrashti. We find that indweller, which is a fragmentary portion of God within, as our jiva, our soul, or we look for that divine indweller in those around us. For example, without doing this, even if one is sitting and simply engaged in antardrashti, it is still bahyadrashti. Therefore, physical, God-related activities such as having the darshan of God, performing his puja, worship, or engaging in discourses, devotional songs, etc. of God are all in fact forms of antardrashti. Literally, antardrashti means to look within or to introspect, but here Shriji Maharaj gives his own unique definition, and the term bahyadrashti means to look outwards and is the antonym of antardrashti. All of these are aspects of Jnān-yagna, sacrifice of knowledge, jnana. In addition to behold that form of God within one's heart, to perform its puja, to bow before it, etc., is also antardrashti, and they are also aspects of a Jnān-yagna. For this reason, then, all satsangis, all participants in this spiritual community are continuously performing such a Jnān-yagna. However, it is by the wish of God that some attain samadhi, in which there becomes a collapse of duality between subject and object, and there's just a unity, very high meditative state, and others do not. Nevertheless, sometimes it could also be that devotee themselves has some sort of deficiency. Then there are those goofballs who say, do not sing devotional songs which describe the gopis. Sing only Nirguna devotional songs. The gopis were the milk maidens of Vrindavan, of Sri Krishna. And Nirguna refers to the formless aspect of God. Those same goofballs claim that one who roams around naked is Nirguna, without form. But if one could become Nirguna by merely walking around naked, then even dogs, donkeys, and other animals would be called Nirguna. That is the understanding of goofballs. In comparison, a devotee possessing Jnān realizes only God is Nirguna, formless, and all those who have some relation to God are followers of the Nirguna path. Furthermore, any spiritual discourse or devotional song associated with God is also Nirguna. Others which are not associated with God possess Maya gunas, material qualities, and should thus be considered to be Saguna, with form. So, if a person has not been graced with the attainment of God, then even if they walk around naked, they cannot be called Nirguna. Whereas, even if a householder has become graced with the attainment of God, they can still be called Nirguna, as can a renunciate. Therefore, the path to attaining God is itself the Nirguna path, and all God-related activities are also thus Nirguna. You might wonder what on earth the context of that specification Sriji Maharaj is saying is. Well, it refers to the path of Nirguna, which is understanding the divine only in terms of nothingness, in terms of absence, formlessness. It is one of the most prominent forms of understanding the divine still today. And it's a very valid path, absolutely. But it comes with a lot of reinterpretations, especially in relatively recent terms, where the idea is to forsake any form of God at all, as that would distract one from attaining the formless state of divine realization. And the formless state referring to that which precedes all form. But in traditions such as the one we're reading from, Sriji Maharaj and others emphasize that the path of formlessness is not a path of forsaking any form. So put on your clothes and still have some reverence for the forms of the divine. As for a person who has come into contact with God, there is no limit to their good fortune. But such a relationship with God is not the result of merits from one life alone. That is why Sri Krishna Bhagwan has stated in the Bhagavad Gita, namely the 45th verse of the 6th chapter, Aneka janma sansiddhastato yati param gatim, which means one becomes realized and attains the highest state of enlightenment after the pious deeds of many lives have been accumulated. What is this state of enlightenment? Most high? Well, the attainment of the manifest form of God is itself the highest state of enlightenment. Again, Sri Krishna has said in the 7th verse of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivansho jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatanaha manashashtani indriyani prakritishtani gharshati. This verse means, in this world, those jivas, those souls who are anshas, which literally means part or component, but in this context should be interpreted as devotee of God, withdraw their mind and 5 jnānendriyas, the 5 organs of perception, away from the panch vishais, the experiences of the 5 senses, and keep them suppressed. On the other hand, those who are not anshas of God are drawn by their indriyas and are taken where the indriyas wish to go. They're drawn by their senses. and they're a slave to the senses, basically. Because we are not led astray by our indriyas, we should realize ourselves to be anshas of God. Realizing this, we should remain elated, should engage in the worship of God, and should offer all of the vrittis, the forces of thought of our indriyas, to God. We should continuously perform a Jnān-yagna, a sacrifice of knowledge in this manner. Without performing such yajñas, there is no way in which liberation can be attained. The 4 Vedas, the Sankhya scriptures, the Yoga scriptures, the Dharma Shastras, the 18 Puranas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Narad Pancharatra. In fact, all the scriptures share the principle that liberation cannot be attained without performing yajñas. Forms of sacrifice, austerity. It is also my command that all Paramhansas and all Satsangis should continue performing a Jnān-yagna. While performing a Jnān-yagna in this manner, one ultimately has a divine vision of Para-Brahman within one's own self, which is Brahman, the ultimate reality. This is the fruit of the Jnān-yagna. The climax of the Jnān-yagna, the climax of the Jnān-yagna ritual is when one becomes a Nirvana Mukta of Shvedvip. As long as one has not attained that state, one should realize that much is left to be accomplished. In fact, one should harbor a strong desire to become a Nirvana Mukta. In the process, one should not lose faith, and one should not consider oneself to be unfulfilled. Since one has been graced with the attainment of God, one should consider oneself to be absolutely fulfilled, and one should diligently continue performing the Jnān-yagna. Thank you for listening. Jai Swaminarayan.